unfortunately get most of the credit for the swimsuit issue stuff. When I had nothing to do with
credits in air quotes.
Well, credits because I was the editor at the time the book came out. By the time the book came out, but Pat was the editor.
Well, remember Randy was telling us, Lorenzen?
Yeah,
you have to go
all the story.
Watch the Randy Lorenzen thing about how he was doing it secretly on the side because Canal was going to make it wonky because people wearing masks.
Because essentially, Pat, they told him not to do it, and he did it anyway. And it was wildly successful. It proved that he was right, but he was gone by that time. He was not the editor anymore because we're talking about insubordination. Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories. So welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith, my friend Cam Benty, my other really good friend Steve Strope. We got the three amigos back together again. We've been doing all kinds of interviews.
All kinds.
We've been busy. Lots of interviews. Been busy guys, but it's like, well, wait, let's get the band back together here.
There must be the band.
We've been doing all kinds of fun stuff.
He needs a guitarist and a singer.
Sure. No, I just really. It's impossible. So see what I have to work with.
See what I have to do.
And that.
So I know we have never officially. I don't think I've ever officially just mentioned the fact that I have escaped.
You have.
I have escaped from New York. I have escaped from
that's it.
Our undisclosed location.
Kurt Russell.
And yes, and Adrian Barbeau.
Escape New York. I escaped New York.
So
that's what I'm saying.
Yes. So I am no longer living in Southern California.
That's
live in this palatial real estate thing in Southwest Iowa.
That's right.
And
flying kites.
It's a wonderful flying kites. That's right. Yes, with my granddaughter. Because the wind never stops blowing where I am, and it's
Palmdale West.
Yes.
Palmdale East. There you go.
East. Very east. Yes. It's all very green. It's all very green where I live now.
That's
so
a change.
Live in the Southwest, about an hour from Des Moines, and it's wonderful. It's really it's nice and quiet.
I'm very happy.
I'm 18 miles away from the closest gas station.
Got your family there?
My family is all there. That's where I originally came from. I'm the kid from Iowa. It's like I always wanted to do this photograph. I saw it as an ad one time, so I can't claim that this is my idea, but it was this little photo, and it says and the caption was if you believe in Iowa, it shows. And it was a guy in a suit, but instead of a tie, he had a corn cob right here. It was like, if you believe in Iowa, it shows.
I thought maybe Valerie was going to pull her hair back and you were going to get a pitchfork.
So we've threatened to do the
American Gothic.
Gothic thing, yes.
There you go.
Anyway, that's the little piece of news here. We've actually been there for about close to 6 months now.
Has it been? Oh,
yeah. Left in December, and
they keep pulling me back.
I come back here, to experience $6 a gallon gasoline, which is
how much is it there?
$4.20, $4.30.
Because it makes sense that it's cheaper where they have to truck it all the way to.
Yes.
Well,
the state of California does not allow you to sell gasoline in California unless it was refined here. Did you know that?
No.
Yes. There's probably lots of reasons why they do that. Probably not very much in the way of justifiable at this point, but it's a little bit shocking. It's a little shocking.
It is.
And so the people back in the Midwest are screaming bloody murder because it's $4 a gallon.
Right.
And I said, well, in California, it's a lot more. It's probably at least $2 to $2.50 more. It's almost 50% more.
But you said a year ago in Iowa, it was only $1.20?
About 18 months ago. Yeah.
$1.20 to $4.40?
$4.40. Yeah. So that's a big hit. And that's what they're talking about. That's almost certainly a threefold deal. So yeah. And I would love to hear the justifications, the rationalization from the oil companies as to why. We have our own personal
They're not
opinions.
making any money. They're not making any money. You saw the percentages. You see that?
But I think that I just heard some stories about record profits. What a shock!
That's the one.
Yeah. So and I think it's very hard to justify it, quite frankly. You can blame it on the Russians and what's going on in Ukraine, but I don't believe that for a moment. I think it's a rationalization, not a justification.
Which means they're being opportunistic.
Yes, and the sad part is that the government's allowing them to do it. Now, if you had a hurricane somewhere in the southeast, and some particular gas station owner decided to raise his prices because demand was very high, and he had a certain amount, he would be fined, and he would be attacked by the government
I
to
think
say
the
that's
term
price
you're looking
gouging.
for is there's going to be a lynching.
Yeah. And that's illegal. But yet
they can do it
when it's nationwide and they're screwing the entire country.
Sure.
It seems to be okay. So I don't really understand the rationalization behind that.
I don't think there is rationalization. I think it's taking advantage of the situation.
if you are a conspiracy theorist, you might say that the oil companies might be saying, well, you know what? If the federal government is trying to force us into an electric vehicle, then there's no reason why we shouldn't just charge whatever we can, because you're going to force us out of business eventually. So we're going to take advantage of it right now. I would hate to think that's the situation, but more than likely, I think there's probably some real validity there. Which is sad. It's very, very sad because we are all internal combustion enthusiasts. But so right away, I would say, well, maybe what I need to do.
Thank you for saying that.
For what?
Instead of saying ice.
Oh, internal combustion enthusiast. I know.
By the way, all of you who may ever introduce yourself or say hi to me somewhere, never use that in conversation with me. Just say engine.
Say ice,
because if it's electric, it's a motor, right? So just say engine, and I'll know it's internal combustion. I really don't need ice.
The definition
or
between
ICE
motor
or MOUSE or FU.
That's right.
So I told you I'm just tingling.
He is tingling.
Here's another collusion.
Collusion? EV Builder's Guide.
Wow. I'm going to build that.
Well, I mean, this is inevitable.
There you go.
This is inevitable.
This is our guys at Engaged Media. There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
and that's fine. I mean, because and print, it's odd that it would be print and not electronic. I'm sure there's
print's
electronic
dead,
version.
so what are they doing?
It's digital.
Yeah. But I mean, nice paper and nice cover. So right away, it's like, okay.
How to make your car unbelievably boring.
But at this point, really, because us being dinosaurs and print dinosaurs, we should applaud anybody who's doing print.
That was kind of a seal.
Good on you.
That's right.
Thanks for believing in it. Because there's very few.
Well, there you go. You can get a Bronco.
Hey, you know what?
Yeah, get a Bronco with electric motor.
The car thing theoretically is just like music. There's so many different styles. There's a version for everybody to like.
Exactly.
So if these cats want to do that,
it's all right. It's good.
It was interesting. Yeah, it's interesting the kits that they have.
Where'd you find this?
When I bought water.
When you bought water, so you found it on the found it on the newsstand. Wow.
There it is.
The fact that there's a newsstand out there to buy magazines with is
no
equally
hot
shocking.
rod. There's no hot rod.
Of course not.
There's a motor trade.
Why would you have that?
It's like
woodworking.
Speaking
of hot rod.
That's right. I've got some questions.
Uh-oh.
So
I wasn't actually leading into you, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk on the show. I have a large reference library at home.
Yes.
Including every issue of Hot Rod magazine ever printed.
You have a complete collection?
I have every one.
Do you have some extras?
What do you want?
There's some 64s that I'm looking
Are we striking a deal here?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I'll trade you 5 83s for 164.
Okay, fine. I don't need any. I have them all.
Do you have it in digital?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Anyway.
So I, from time to time, will grab a decade and just look at all 12. I use it for reference. I love visiting stuff that was in the time growing up.
It
of course,
immerses you.
Oh yeah, and it's good
time.
memories. I love looking at so and so's car. And I remember that car, and that was really cool. And I remember that event. I was at it, looking at the coverage, or just some stuff that Smith wrote. Looking at that.
Which is now the print is fading. It's actually ink is actually fading.
No,
it's
part of the
it's still. Oh no, I get to read it all.
50 years
So
ago.
I'm actually waiting for that to happen because I have another 5 or 6 years to get into the 20 years ago.
There you go.
Or 40 years ago. Sorry, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Oh, don't worry, you're already classic, so you're fine. So
like Coke,
which is mothballed.
Or that. So I came upon. I'm going through my early 90s right now.
Okay. That was
the hell's that? We got rats.
it's like,
wow. On the set.
ROUSs.
Yes. So I'm flipping through. Actually, I have two different things. So I'm like through 92, 93, and I remember. I forgot about it, but revisiting, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Somebody at the book,
Hot Rod,
at Hot Rod, probably above the editor, got it in their head that we need to do a whole thing on hot rod Harleys every issue.
Oh, yes. I know all about
Billet
that.
Harleys and how to build a Harley and start with a chassis of a Harley.
The question becomes, do we want to throw this particular individual under the bus?
Is it Cam?
It's not.
No.
It's not.
No, but it's someone that we all know.
Jimmy
Beat the crap out of him.
Well, no, because he's no longer with us.
Well, then don't beat the crap out of him. Just expose him.
Oh, that would be the one.
Okay,
Yes.
there you go.
John Diana.
Oh, well, that that doesn't even surprise me.
So that brings up a really, so why
By the
are
way,
there Harleys in hot rods?
I'm not an editor. I never was an editor, so I can say the word like whore job.
Yeah, oh yes, that's exactly the words that we use.
Because what was that? And again, I'm not an anti-Harley guy.
No, we weren't either.
But I was like, what, as a subscriber, I'm going, why am I, where's my tubbed freaking Nova?
Yeah. Instead, we're reading about Harleys.
Here's a Softail, and we're going to add these billet accessories. And I'm like, don't care,
Yeah,
actually. Because if
why?
I did, I'd buy Hot Bike,
Yeah.
which was your book at the time.
Right.
So I'm like, knowing they have Hot Bike, why is this even in here and not in Hot Bike? So was this a deal with
Yes.
Harley Davidson?
Guaranteed.
No, it wasn't.
Well, it had
No.
to be an advertising
Well,
draw.
it was an advertising-related thing, but ultimately, it was, and here's where we throw him under the bus.
Okay.
Fishing.
But only just
Fishing.
because it's the truth, and ultimately the truth should out.
We speak
right?
the truth here.
Yes.
I know.
Don't do
and
that.
I'm not supposed to tap on the.
Don't do that.
Sorry. Bad. Steve.
So he basically wanted a free bike, and so he
Oh, that's simple.
and so he forced us to do editorial. Of
course.
And we got the most wonderful letter from a reader that essentially said,
Was it Steve?
no, but it could have been.
You have no idea. My
it was a
aliases.
fantastic letter, and we ran it in the book. And of course, he
It
didn't
was
care.
smartly written.
Well, it drilled right down to the essence of it.
Okay.
And what we had been asked several times, so it came up within the magazine that, well, motorcycles are just part of the overall thing, and we want to be all encompassing. So therefore, that's why we're trying to justify something that management was forced cramming down our throats because nobody on the staff wanted it
Or knows it.
or knew
You
anything
guys-
about
you
it. We had a
guys don't-
freelance.
yeah.
Frank Keisler had to write all that stuff because he was the hot bike guy.
Yeah.
So
I happened to notice
this-
some good photos from Wesley Allison and from
Oh yeah,
Scott.
yeah,
Sure.
Scott Killeen.
Scott Killeen.
And,
all our favorite names.
Yes. So we got this great letter from this reader that said, so let me see if I understand this now. You're justifying these motorcycles in Hot Rod Magazine because that's what enthusiasts do. So if that's the case, then I'm going to read about toilets too because we use those every day.
Excellent, sir.
Oh, it was a fantastic letter, an absolutely perfect letter. So I ran it. I ran it in the book, and I expected to get just fire bolts from the same floor that he was on with us,
Right.
And because he didn't read the magazine,
watch.
he went right over.
So
his head.
who was he getting this bike from since you weren't being paid by
There
Some
may have
builder.
been some deal
builder,
somewhere,
yeah.
but I mean it was all a scam.
But those
Yeah, I'm
deals
trying to
always-
Which
figure
is
out
really
who
unfortunate.
benefited, though.
And I hate to say that because what it does
Because it didn't. You
Because
didn't
a lot-
have
because-
paying advertisers from Harley. You didn't have paying
No.
advertisers. Now
No.
I can say back all the
At that
ways
time,
back,
the
Hot
bikes-
Rod always did a motorcycle test.
Yes.
And if you go
Street
back,
bike, dirt bike,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But this was highly focused on build yourself a hot rod Harley.
Right.
And
But
And he just
there were other
rationalized it because he could.
But there were other things that used to be in the magazine too. You know, go-karting was big at a
was
time.
huge.
The
Right.
van thing was big.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
all
Right.
different kinds of things came and went. So the deal of having a bike and hot rod to me isn't weird, but the execution is the key. And if it looks like a whore job, which they
did.
usually did,
They
because there was no
oftentimes
way you just couldn't paint it any other way.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have
Right.
the situation where John was notorious for that. We
And-
know John.
And before
Yes.
that,
personal
with the motorcycle,
experience,
it was a
so.
motorcycle test.
Yes.
You got a brand new bike from whoever it was, sport
Right.
bike or dirt bike.
And that, I think,
somebody
was
would ride it and test it. And
That
it-
was
and that
legitimate.
Was it.
That was
this
legitimate.
was pages of features on custom Harleys,
Yes.
and then pages of how to set
Yes.
up your Harley chassis or this or that. And I'm like
And
going,
we were basically walked in, and
Yeah.
they pulled the hammer back on the gun and went, "You're going to run this. You're going to
Okay.
get these number of pages,
Right.
and you're going to do this." Or I mean, never said it this way, of course not, but it was like, or I'll find someone who can.
Well,
so it's like,
did it too.
But the thing I couldn't find,
yes, and this was not just with JD. This was rampant throughout the industry.
Well, Jim Adolph would do the deal with Brian Hitano, who was on staff, and he would do certain bike tests because he was trying to pull in advertising.
We were trying to pull advertisers in,
and they were
That's
legitimate.
A deal.
They were legitimate tests,
Yes.
but every so often, even CarCraft had bike tests in it.
Right.
So
I just couldn't find a main advertiser that made sense to me of why they were doing it. I didn't see ads
it really
from
was
Harley
more. We had a boss who just wanted a bike, and that was the way he was going to do it.
Oh, okay.
And sadly, we had to just put the pages out, and the readers. We knew the readers didn't like it. We were getting tons of mail going, "What is this? This is crap. We don't need this." All the letters said the same thing. If I want to read about motorcycles, I'll buy a motorcycle book.
Right.
That's not what this book is about. Yes, and in
my boss.
in private conversations, we could say that, but you couldn't put that in print.
Right.
I mean, the letter that we got from the reader about the toilets, that was as close as we could get to is insurrection, as insubordinate as we could get.
Insubordination.
Insubordinate.
And our focus then became on swimsuit issues.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
There you go.
I remember that.
Was also tough. I mean,
you guys got lightning bolts from librarians at high schools.
My mother.
You smut peddling bastards.
In fact, so my mom was a first grade teacher, right? My mom was a first grade teacher.
She's a subscriber.
Yay,
So the story. Here's the story.
Mom.
So Pat Ganal, I unfortunately get most of the credit for the swimsuit issue stuff. when I had nothing to do with
credits in air quotes.
Well, credits because I was the editor at the time the book came out. By the time the book came out, but Pat was the editor.
Well, remember Randy was telling us, Lorenzen?
Yeah,
you
Randy
have to
told
go
all the story.
Watch the Randy Lorenzen thing about how he was doing it secretly on the side because Ganal was going to make it wonky because people wearing masks.
Because essentially, Pat. They told him not to do it, and he did it anyway. And it was wildly successful. It proved that he was right, but he was gone by that time. He was not the editor anymore because we talk about insubordination.
But those were driven by circulation.
Yes.
Our Nigel Heaton, the guy, he wanted
ne-
something that would lift the deal and make it.
And it was wildly successful.
Yes.
But I got the credit for it when I had nothing to do with it. So I always try and make that point that, Pat Ganal, he got in trouble for it, but at the same time, he was vindicated. No one knows that story, which is why those are important to talk about. Because
those are amazing.
In fact, we should bring him on sometime.
Pat.
Too tall.
We would have to get a taller.
Yes.
Pat is too tall.
Well, just put him on a small stool.
That's right. But at CarCraft we did the version of. Remember what the CarCraft version was? Paint and body.
Oh, that's right. Yes. The one we had to do every year.
Yeah,
which worked. But it worked.
Yeah,
it was good. We also did.
It wasn't hot rod.
So we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP and ARP-bolts.com. And we all three build cars. We all work on this stuff. Yep. And
I tinker.
You tinker.
I tinker.
Yes, we all build.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a really cool multiple purpose fastener for me because there's all the science and all the technology, which is bottomless. Trust me. Unbelievable amount of research that they put into these things.
Sure, absolutely.
And on top of it, you get them out of the package, and they're absolutely beautiful. Which I've joked before, it's like jewelry for your car.
When pre-oiled.
We're building when we're building a high end car, there isn't anything else going on it. It's part of the criteria for me to have them lining the engine bay, not just on the engine, everywhere.
Yeah.
So you get all the strength, the durability, the reliability, and fantastic good looks.
Sure.
Kind of like Jeff here.
And without peer. Without peer.
And you know what?
Or pairs.
Without peer. There's nobody else that does what they do.
It is. So check them out at arp-bolts.com, and they can help you out. So what would happen is you would do your issue and you'd put it out there, and then roughly 2 months later, there was a 6-month lag between the time you came up with the idea and you actually got returns on how it worked. So you're literally 6 months into your next year before you realize whether or not this was a good idea or not.
Yep.
And you live and die by your newsstand numbers. And it was highly stressful. So you turned me on to that Netflix thing about F1. Because I'm not really an F1 fan until I watched the drive to survive.
Yep.
And
now he's hooked.
There's an F1 fan.
Irrespective of F1, it was the connection I made with it was the immense amount of pressure that everybody is under.
Right.
Everybody, the drivers,
huge dollars.
the crews, because the dollars are monstrous.
Yes.
Monstrous.
And
Biggest
on
in
a
the
much
world,
smaller 1% level, that's kind of what the magazine business was about. An immense amount of pressure put on you to perform.
You're within perspective. Behind the helm of the magazines, there was a lot of money, a lot of advertising dollars. There's a lot of. I'd say there's plenty of responsibility.
And so, you know,
how many editors were there? Because in F1 seat, what are there? 20 in the
seats.
world. How many
20
editors
seats.
were there? In the hot rod
now, maybe
street
20.
machine. No.
Oh, you mean
main guys? There's hot rod,
Yes.
Carcraft, Popular
Of course.
Hot Rodding.
Probably
In the day.
Chevy
probably
High, Super
50.
Chevy, you know, Pontiac magazine, blah, 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 maybe 20. Maybe 20.
Oh, there's more than
So-
that, I think.
So 20 people.
You guys were under the same amount of pressure to not screw it up.
And everybody wants to be the editor of Hot Rod, so you're the one that everybody's under the gun
Right there.
to be, you know,
Top dog, Top Gun, right there.
And I never really aspired to that, but it was like, you know, they offered me the job. I was like, well, I mean, how many shots do I get at this?
Not many.
You know, so yeah, I'm going to take it. And can I do this job? Well, I guess we'll find out.
Right.
My best story though about pressure was right after I took the Carcraft job, right? And as editor, so that they, you know, and I'd been in the magazine for as editor about 4 months, and it was 4 or 5 months, and it was the Winter Nationals, and I'm walking back. So
What year was this?
This would have been 80. This would have been probably 88. Early, you know, so Winter Nationals, 1988. And the guy that hired me, Rick Vogeland, hired me into the company. I happened to see him because we were there shooting photos of the drag strip. You know, we were going to cover the race, and we're walking back after the race is over, and I happen to walk up next to him, and he goes, "So, you've been editor now for about 6 months. How is it?" And I said, "If it's anything like I don't know why this happened that night, but it was fresh in my mind." I said, "If it's anything like last night, I don't know if I can do this." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, I had this horrible, wake up in the middle at 2:00 in the morning, drenched in sweat, scared to death, right? And he goes, "What was it about?" And I said, "The nightmare was that."
John Diana would put it.
Put
a Harley special.
Nothing to do with John Diana. And I said, you know, so when you produce a magazine, you lay it all out, and then you ship it off to the press. This one's Crossroads Press in Effingham, Illinois.
Yep.
I don't know why I remember that, but I do. A huge place, and they send you a blue line,
right,
of a blueprint of the magazine,
right,
and it's this really thick, heavy paper. It smells like ink,
yep,
and that's your chance to finally correct any final corrections. And then you send it off, and that's it. Now it's in set in stone, and you can't change it. And it starts to run down the press. And the nightmare is that a pressman who was a friend of mine in the dream, I didn't know anybody there, but they were.
Right.
I had met guys there, and they were enthusiasts, and they would pull the magazine literally off the press and read it,
right,
while the press is running these giant wheels, you know, like they do in the 1940s TV
sure,
show or
movies.
And he calls me and says, "Dude, everything in this magazine is wrong. Everything. What did you do?" And it was like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, I said, "Well, there's a part number wrong?" He goes, "No, it's not even in English. It's like Greek, you know, where you fill in, like we call it
Greek type. Yeah,
Greek type. It doesn't mean anything, but it's just to indicate type." He said, "Everything's in Greek type. The whole magazine's in Greek type." And I woke up drenched in sweat. My wife goes, What was this about, right? Who are you dreaming about? I went, "Oh my God." So I tell Rick this story, and we're walking back to the cars. And
well, it'd work if it was the April issue.
Yeah. And I said,
special,
April Fools.
April Fools. And I said, "I'm really scared, you know." And he goes, "What makes you think you're the only one?" And I went, "No." It's like that scene in the old World War II movies where the private goes to the sergeant, said, "Sergeant, I'm scared." And the sergeant goes, "I am too." "Not you." Right? It's that classic cliche deal, right? And I felt like I was looking around for the cameras. It was like, this is just a weird moment. But what he said, "Well, that means you care."
Yeah.
That means you care. And so it'll be okay. You know, because all that means is, because it happened to me too. I said, "Not you." And, "Oh, yeah, it happened to me." So all it means is next morning, you go in the next morning on Monday morning, and you work just that much harder to make sure you don't screw it up. But there's the level of pressure.
Sure.
And eventually it became more like,
Sure,
okay, it's never just a job, because it really isn't. But at the same time, it was like it got easier because you keep making mistakes, but you make fewer and fewer of them, and you're working towards that perfect issue, which you never get to. No. But you try really hard.
I was worried about, in terms of circulation numbers, a boxcar full of the most magazines that ever came out of Effingham getting stuck in a snowstorm, and then
or the boxcar catches on fire and burns to the ground.
Oh God!
And your second largest market, it doesn't get any magazines.
Right.
Yeah,
and so your job's on the line because you didn't sell anyway. So
right. Anyway. And there were hundreds of examples like that, where small examples, small little
stuff like that
things that screwed up. But that was just the magazine print job. Now what happens? Because the other big fear was, well, you screwed up in this story. You described something incorrectly, and now you're stuck with it. And you put a correction in the earliest that you can, but that's a tiny little thing somewhere in the back of the book somewhere. Nobody cares. And 1% of the people realize you made a mistake and you corrected it, and nobody else even sees it, but they all lambaste you the next time. Well, that was wrong. Yeah. And the beauty of digital now is that you screw up, you pull it down, you fix it, and put it back up, and it's like, did anybody notice?
Right,
exactly.
So, and Rick's classic line, I use it all the time. Yeah. Because when you make a mistake, it's like, well, journalists print their errors, doctors bury them.
That's
yeah.
I think the line, not to be funny, is like, doctors bury their mistakes. Journalists print them so everybody can see them over and over again.
Yes.
So there you go.
Did the Declaration of Thomas Jefferson?
Yeah.
Did the Declaration of Independence, right? Or main writer?
He was one of them. Yeah.
That'd be like, July 3rd. That's due tomorrow? Shit. We the people.
That's right. John's got to come in here and sign it again.
I've been working on this for weeks.
Steve, you had some news. What's going on?
What news did I have?
You had something that was going to be earth-shaking.
Earth-shattering.
Probably not. No. So in reading my hot rods, I have taken to, besides skimming through, actually reading each one of the editorials.
Oh, God.
You should be
the
afraid.
hardest thing an editor has to do is his column every month, and it's usually
the last thing.
Exactly, because you abhor doing it. And I don't know how many I did.
A lot.
45.
Yeah, I've spell corrected each one of them,
and some of them are just hideous.
No, they're fine. It's fine. So I haven't talked. I'm going to tell Mr. John McGann.
The current editor of Hot Rod Magazine.
The current Grand Poobah.
And a good guy.
And a super guy. So I love throwing him crazy ideas that he can't ever do and no one will allow him to do. But I'm gonna offer this up. I know.
Synapse that will connect.
I'm going to offer this up because of one that I just saw last night, or 3 or 4 days ago, in a 90. Where was I? It was either 91 or 92 issue. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And the editorial is, and it's not you. I know you're there then. Maybe it was you, but it's basically they were having an in-office or somewhere, a group of people, not just the editor, talking about electric cars.
Really? Back then?
Yeah.
Really?
And it was fascinating to read because one of the other guys in the round table said something that I've said. They go along the lines of, well, I hope these electric car people understand that batteries don't make power. You're going to have to go have a coal-burning electric plant make the power, and you're no better than anybody else is. And there was a bunch of other really interesting comments. So that got me to reading just because I was fascinated with how relative that is right now.
Yes.
So that got me just reading any of the editorials just to see, because some of them are about that issue, and some of them, look, you wrote a lot when the smog laws were coming in and stuff like that, talking about what's going on now, the times, and how that's affecting this industry. Okay. And I'm going to suggest to John, you know what? Why don't you come over and use my library and start with this electric one and look at the editorials and say, 23 years ago, this was an editorial about this, and it's relative now. What do we think about that now? And just it's very interesting to find a lot of stuff that is like, Well, that's really interesting what they thought was going to happen
GM did
20 years into the future, 30 years into the future, and how right some of them are and how, way off they are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because nobody's crystal ball is perfect.
No, of course, but it's a very interesting retrospective thing to look at because somebody's writing it with intent.
Yeah.
They're not just, well, maybe you. I don't know what you were doing, but you're
agenda.
He's
perhaps,
very,
is that what you're looking for?
No.
Okay.
But filling space is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
It's
we try and make it as
whatever
as
these kids want to read.
possible.
I don't know.
Yeah. Give them what they want.
But I find it fascinating to read that because each one of the editorials, or a lot of them, is a quick sign of the times. What's going on in 1993?
Yeah.
What was going on in 83? Because I have all of them.
Yeah.
And it's really neat to find some and go, what the guy's thinking is going to be happening by year 2000. Right, we're going to be, we're going to do 400 miles an hour in the quarter. It's like, no.
Yeah.
But we are going 330,
But no one also thought you'd be doing it 1,000 foot either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was always assuming it would always be 1320.
But yeah, so I'm going to suggest to John, find a way to use this because I think it's a really neat, retrospective and see how that plays in today. What the past editors were thinking about different topics and what was happening and what did happen.
Right.
Where are we at with it now? Because I find it very curious. So now I'm digging in and reading them. And some of them are just like, what's happening in this issue or,
That's a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
there is a lot of it, but there's plenty that are talking about a certain topic or a certain thing going on with either government.
Probably the one that I did that generated the most or one of the biggest responses, because almost all of them would come to me because it's my opinion, right?
Sure.
And a friend of mine sent me this book, and it was called The Ozone Scare. And if you remember back in the late 80s, the big thing was CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons.
Yes.
Chlorofluorocarbons.
Good enough.
And what they were propellants in like hairspray or shaving cream or whatever it was, and also Freon and used in air conditioning. And the concept and the concept was the
my
theory,
guys behind the board are like, Jesus, what you need to say.
So the deal was the theory was, and this was just a theory, that these CFCs were going to climb up into the atmosphere, combine, and destroy the ozone layer. And then we were all going to die by about now. By about 2025, we were all supposed to die from UVB radiation, because it was going to destroy the ozone layer. And the proof was that there's a hole in the ozone layer.
Thanks, Aquanet.
And so and this book was about why that was a bogus claim, and then why this really doesn't
hold up.
Is there a hole in the ozone layer? The answer is yes. Why is it there? No one knows, but it's been there long before there were chlorofluorocarbons, and so
it didn't get caused
naturally
by
occurring, and it's literally a hole. And they could go back to tests in the early 50s where a scientist would run a balloon up and test this stuff and say, my test must be wrong because I'm getting all these erroneous numbers that I don't see 6 months from now when I test again. And so this book was all about that this is bogus. And the authors of that particular, I still have the book. And what's intriguing is, so I read it and said, I did my column about that.
Yeah, I bet you I haven't run into it yet, but I have it somewhere.
And it's
due to the
what is this?
Thanks to the internet.
I don't like
poof. It's right here.
No.
Okay. Oh, it's gone now.
So anyway,
the ozone layer. Scientists confirmed at the end of last month that the 2021 Antarctic ozone hole closed on December 23.
Shocking.
There you go.
Here we are.
Only a few days earlier than 2020.
Okay, so 30 years later, 30 years earlier, we were supposed to, almost 40 years now, we're supposed to die from this hole in the ozone layer. And there's the quote unquote proof.
Right.
And don't confuse us with the facts. This is what's going on. And we have to stop using CFCs right now or we're all going to die. And everybody that lives, the closer you get to the equator, the shorter your lifespan is going to be. So if you grew up in Denmark and all of a sudden went to the equator, it would just fry you. It would turn you into a lobster and you'd be dead. Skin cancer. We're all going to die from skin cancer.
Well, I just think it's nice that it closed 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah. So it's like, no. So my point in bringing this up is that I actually got a letter. I think I saved it. It'd be. I have to go home and look through my.
So this letter did not get printed.
No. Because I found it highly offensive, frankly, but and it wasn't gonna prove anything. But it was from a professor at MIT, and he called me an environmental Nazi. Me. Because
why would you
published
be the Nazi?
Because I published this information,
and
I wrote him a letter. I wrote him a letter back that said, "Well, I think you ought to." I mean, I'm really surprised that a professor at MIT would make such a glaring error as to accuse me of something like this. Because he says you're putting all these erroneous facts out there, and that you have no basis for any of this information, and you're an idiot. And I said, well, thank you for your letter. I appreciate the fact that you're writing me. I'm frankly, I'm kind of surprised that you read Hot Rod Magazine. Well, I think what happened was some friend just went, look at this guy's an idiot.
Right.
And then he got so offensive.
You're talking about a book that a bunch of scientists
wrote. But I bought into the
common sense. You bought into.
I bought into the common sense. So therefore, you must be wrong.
Right.
And so I sent him a letter back and saying, well, I think you missed a very important point. Is that right at the top it says editorially speaking, which means this is my editorial. It's my opinion of what's going on here. Has nothing to do. You don't have to believe any of this. But all I tried to say was, look, open this up. So now here we are, 40 years later, and we're being told by.
Find that jackass on Facebook. Find him right now.
That's right.
Right now. And if you're the buddy pal that sent Jeff
I'm sure
into the trap,
I'm sure he's
guy,
dead. I'm sure he's dead.
Sure.
Because he's probably 80 years old in 1987. He got burned up in the ozone. Yeah.
I don't care. Find his kids.
So now the question becomes, what happened to that? What happened to that? Right. So, and what the proponents will say is that, well, see, we got rid of all those chlorofluorocarbons. So therefore you've been saved.
Closed up.
You've been saved. Yeah. I've been saved. And the reality is it was all bullcrap to begin with. And we reacted to something and spent millions and millions of dollars to fix something that was naturally closed.
Was not broken.
Not broken to begin with.
Well, you're no Nazi. You know nothing. As a straight man.
Sergeant Schultz.
There you go.
Sergeant Schultz.
I know nothing.
I know nothing. So,
Great show. Please bring it back on.
Quite frankly, as a journalist, you're supposed to be naturally suspicious, right?
And open-minded.
And open-minded at the same time, and say, look, it could be that maybe this whole thing with CO2 and the greenhouse effect, which is not, prove to me that that's really what's going on. Prove to me, without a shadow of a doubt, without a possibility that there could be another explanation. And my feeling is that has not been done. Because one of the things that was talked about with the CFC thing was some professor, I forget his name, it's only been 40 years, showed this a chemical process on the blackboard, right? And said, there's your proof. And then so somebody in the book, they talked about the fact that it's like, well, let's prove it in a controlled environmental or scientific experiment. Couldn't be done. Now, maybe somebody now will say that that's not true, but at the time, they couldn't prove it. So it's like, well, look, so why are we chasing our tail like this? So it's like there are so many other things in the world that need to be fixed, and we're going to chase our tail. It's like the state of California trying to save the world with, by reducing CO2 emissions, when China is actively building
as we've talked about that,
coal-powered, powered plants, run off coal, because China has no oil. So I've learned this from some friends of mine at General Motors that said, well, the reason we're pushing electric cars is because we want to sell to the Chinese. And it's like, but and that's fine. If you want to sell electric cars to Chinese.
They have Russian oil.
Yeah, well, they're buying it. They don't have their own.
Yeah.
They don't have their own.
Interesting.
And so it's a situation where that's fine, but why does it have to be exclusive? Why does it have to be all electric and no...
Aren't we playing into their time?
Internal combustion.
Aren't we playing into their hands? Because China does have rare earth metals for making batteries.
Yeah, probably.
They do.
Yeah.
So we just proven my theory. of these editorials have legitimate things to talk about, at least to reflect on and go, look what happened.
Right.
The dickweeds were wrong. And again, to whoever you are, even if you're dead, screw you.
There you go.
You're wrong.
That's right.
Now, I'm sure someone will, there's probably a scientist, maybe there's a scientist somewhere who's watching this right now and going, well, that's not right.
That's
right.
I
can show you where it was proven. It's like, well, I'd love to see it.
Call
because
us.
It just,
Send your hate email to Jeff Smith.
To Steve Strope.
No.
At Pure Vision in CV Valley, California.
1-800-555-AOL.com
because I'm old. And bring it on.
Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and a guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a small block Chevy head bolt, so that the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And, so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP. And we've all got stories on all that stuff.
For a translation of what he said, call ARPbolts.com.
but the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
Excellent.
And then just check them out at ARP-bolts.com. We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance, they have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance with Nick, my buddy Nick, is the editor.
Biased.
So
Correct.
yes, of course.
Yes.
But they're doing print media, which is of course our favorite. So
in color and everything.
In color and everything,
Yes.
and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is a fun
that's
deal.
a lot.
Great tech.
Great
Written
tech.
by you
know,
and
not
others
always
that are
written by me, but
famous people.
Not always written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it up and
them
read
out
it.
at InTheGarageMedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you. So how about this? Because while we're on a theme of Hot Rod Magazine,
I noticed these things, and I enjoy.
I like that.
Besides reading it,
Yeah.
I discovered, I was reading the editorial, and I landed on that one talking about electric cars, and I was like, well, I should tell John about that. How interesting to retrospect that and talk about that. How right they were, how wrong they were.
In my story that I did for Hot Rod about 1.5 years or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, electronic performance cars. And I ran a photo of an ad that was in, I forget what, I want to say the 72. It was from GM, a full-page ad about electric cars. This is what's coming. This is what's coming. This was like 1972.
There you go.
Pretty amazing.
Apple's got its new electric car coming on. Self-driving.
Apple is going to have an electric car?
Yep.
Good.
And no steering wheel and no pedals.
So that's not, but that's not a car.
Leap of faith.
I've been
Leap
behind
of
that.
faith.
I've been behind that guy.
He haunts the 405.
It's the skinny little pedal on the right.
Try
it. You'll like it.
No, either one of them.
It's a finger on a board. It's an iPad. No
scrolling.
No steering wheel. No
You
steering
can't drive by scrolling.
But it was interesting to see. We talk
Yeah,
about
but then that's not a car.
all the dynamics we have. So due to that the Apple project was shifted and changed multiple times over the course of the last several years due to internal strife and leadership issues.
So they don't know either. Right. That's the answer there. They don't know either.
That's not a car. It's what do we say? A tram.
A conveyance.
That's something you put in Disneyland.
There you go.
It's a
to
tram.
shuttle the kids from Dumbo ride over to whatever the hell. It's not a.
So
I needed
no pedals,
I need a
no
different
wheel.
world to,
no
to live
pedals
in.
and no wheel. Boy, it's like, ooh. I mean, that's a lot of faith to go, okay, take me there, and, I hope I don't die.
It's a shuttle.
Exactly.
So, exactly.
That's a shuttle. That's
on a more interesting level, or a different level.
We hate your idea, Cam.
It's not my idea. I'm just the news guy.
Don't shoot the messenger.
That's right. Look at this one.
Okay, next one.
Oh,
this
there's
one knocked me
more.
over. This one knocked me over.
Okay.
Toyota Supra.
Ooh.
Okay.
Don't
Prices are
upset me.
crazy. Where's the price here? $237,000.
Just sold
For
an
a Supra.
auction or something?
An older Supra?
Older Supra. They're crazy. They went to 70.
You speak Supra?
I speak Supra.
You do?
They're over 100,000.
Are you eloquent in Supra?
Decently. Ooh. Oh. From a collection of an alleged drug kingpin.
Oh, good. There you go.
Good. That's always good.
98 turbo model. 80 generation.
Is that crazy though? I
can't believe that is substantial coinage for that car.
That is unbelievable money. I remember driving those when they were new, and they were fast. I mean, there's no question.
They've got a terrific bottom end. You can build those motors to handle stupid horsepower.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can crank them up.
What was it?
Crank the crap. It was a 6 turbo
flat,
6.
A flat 6?
Yeah, straight 6. Yeah, straight 6.
A straight 6.
And they will take a whole lot of turbo.
Yeah.
Like a whole lot of it. And they'll smile while they do it.
Yeah.
They will be like, fuck it.
Bring more.
Bring it on.
So they're going for over $100,000, you know?
Wow.
Just on a regular deal.
237.5 is...
That's
another one that had just 8,000 miles on it.
Well, it's one of those things where a lot of times if it was without an auction.
Here's another one from another alleged drug trafficker. There's a lot of Supras in the drug world for some reason.
Because they're fast. Talk to Junior Johnson.
It's like Thunder Road, right? You know, get your flathead Ford to outrun those revenuers. The revenuers.
So
much for those
Rocket 88s.
So much for those fair lanes.
Yeah. Hey, good on them. Well, okay. Anything from the Fast and Furious, which I've been a part of, so I can't slam it. But a movie. Yes, you can. A movie car. Yeah. So now it's got.
Oh,
panache
so
by
this is
the one in the movie auctioned off for $550,000.
Yikes!
The horribly decorated, horrifically graphic.
Yes.
Your mouth is open.
Yeah. Your look of shock is appropriate.
I was at Dennis McCarthy's on Friday. You know Dennis? You know Dennis?
80 Supra, Dennis McCarthy. Yes.
Yeah. Is that his shop?
Oh, a close and dear friend.
No, Dennis is awesome, but he didn't build that. He didn't build the Supra.
No. Nick Jennings works at McCarthy's.
Oh, okay.
Which explains
Nick? Yeah, I know Nick very well.
Yeah. He's doing real well over there.
Good.
They're putting LS motors in Chargers.
Excellent.
Yeah. Wow.
Excellent. Somebody has to.
I got some pictures. I can show you.
They're putting
550,000.
No, not really. Are you kidding me?
I'm gonna show you.
In like a '68 Charger, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yes.
A Gen 3 Hemi, I could see.
I know. I said that too.
Wow, Toyota is
people will throw rocks
making
at you if you do
reproduction
something like
parts
that.
now because on
The
the
Mopar
A70
people will
and the
hate you
A80
forever
because of how much they're going for. Wise.
Wow.
Great car. I don't know if it's I don't know how insulting to say it is or isn't an epic car, but I guess in some waters you would consider this a watershed car, a watermark car, especially that motor.
We'll have to put that on.
I know it's a highly desirable motor and for all the right reasons.
So
interesting.
The interesting thing that I just completed is a story for John McGann for Hot Rod Magazine.
Pay attention.
Never heard of him.
Never.
What?
Never
heard of him?
and he says, I got this feature we photographed, and I want you to write it. It's like, okay, what is it? He goes, it's a replica 70% reproduction of a P-51 aircraft with a big block Chevy power motoring it.
Wow.
It's like, powering it. And it's like,
that sounds like compared to the giant motor that was in it?
Yeah, well, here's the deal. So what they did was,
up, Steve.
Yes, this is going to be.
Be ready.
We're going to go for a technical ride here.
That's right. Let's see.
Right?
Okay, we're good.
So I'm going to condense down 2 weeks worth of research into about 15 seconds.
If you're not careful, you're going to learn something.
Be careful now, boys and girls.
That's right.
So here's the deal. So this guy Stewart designed what he calls the S51, which is 70% reproduction. And when it sits on the tarmac, you'd swear it was a P-51. So it's very cool.
What's you can just go buy body parts for a
P-51? This is all.
Or it's handmade.
Handmade. But he's got a kit. You can buy one and assemble this rascal.
Sure.
And he built it. So the point was they found a prop, a four-bladed prop off of a beach something, a turboprop that was proportionate to 70% of the blade size on a 51, which is powered by a Rolls-Royce Merlin or later a Packard V12, not Packard.
Wasn't it a Rolls-Royce?
Rolls-Royce originally, and then they brought it over here, and who did it? It was a V12.
Sure, it wasn't
under license. Allison.
There you go.
So this is powered by a big block Chevy. So, but here's the limitation is you can only spin the prop roughly about 2,200 RPM because if you go above that speed, the tip of the prop goes supersonic and you lose your thrust. So you have to minimize your speed. You keep the speed below 2,300, 2,350. I think is the absolute
not
maximum.
Speed RPM.
RPM, which would be shaft speed, not the tip out here, shaft speed on the propeller.
Right, because that's slower outside.
No, it's faster.
Oh, that's right. It is faster. I'm sorry.
Much faster.
Than center.
You
You're
learned
right.
something right there. Look at that.
Pay attention. That's right.
Okay, so what you have
This
to do
is free.
It's free education.
Get your
so
money's
what
worth
you
here.
have to do is that's why we were talking about this on the way down here. They ran these giant engines because you could only spin them with a straight prop hooked to the rest of the crankshaft, 22 to 2300 RPM. That's it. That's all the faster you can go. So you have to build a giant motor in order to make any kind of speed. So this thing has some speed to it.
Right.
So when Stewart designed this aircraft, he decided to put it through what's called a PSRU, which is a prop speed reduction unit, which is a 2-to-1 gear reduction.
Like a gear vendor's.
Yeah.
Kinda,
so
sorta.
you're going to underdrive it.
Right.
You're not going to speed it up. You're going to slow it down.
Right.
Now, one of the beauties of it is when you slow it down by half, you double the torque. So this thing has monster torque. So he built I talked to the guy that designed the engine and built the engine. It's a 540-inch big block Chevy with this PSRU hooked to the. So you turn the engine around backwards. So the airplane's pointing this way. Engine crankshaft's at the back.
Right.
But because you're going to put it through.
Fan belt's facing you.
Yes.
There's no
and
fan
through the cockpit. And with just 2 gears, now the second gear, which is the underdriven one, is going to be spinning the wrong direction for the prop. So you have to spin the engine backwards. So you have to build a reverse rotation big block Chevy. Okay. So far, no big deal.
Kenny Detweiler does that for his boats.
Yes, because they'll often be twins where they do counter-rotating props, so this one engine is spinning backwards.
Correct.
And that's the end of how much knowledge I know about boats. But the beginning and the end, right there, all in one swell foop. So anyway, this guy built Zacharowski. I hope I'm going to butcher his name. Sorry, Zach. But we spent hours on the phone because he's a retired A-10 pilot. So he's a driver,
That's the
right?
word talk we were talking
Great
about.
stuff.
Yeah, right.
Great. It was a lot of fun talking with him. And so he built the engine, and then custom built an accessory drive, because what he wanted was, because if you screw up on the accessory drive and you lose your water pump, you got to get it on the ground right away, right? In a car, you just pull over and go, I got to change the belt.
Yeah, because it's liquid cooled. It's not air cooled.
Yeah, this is a big block Chevy, liquid cooled aircraft.
Is there any concern there?
Oh yes. So you can't have a water pump failure. You can't have
you
can't have electrical failure because you lose your ignition system.
Right.
And you can't have a
Is this
and you
really
can't have
a
an
good
oil.
idea?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He's going to tell you why.
And I'm going to tell you why.
He's
So
gonna
what he
tell
did
me
was he
why.
designed
Again.
an accessory drive system that gear drives the water pump, drives the water pump directly off the crankshaft. He runs the alternator as a gear driven piece, and he runs a distributor in the back on a normal big block Chevy where it normally would be positioned. Run that with 2 MSD boxes, so you have a switch box
Like NASCAR.
like NASCAR, and then he has not a Vertex, but a magneto that he sticks in it, so you have 2 spark plugs running to each head. So he had to have custom heads made with 2 spark plug holes. And on this big block Chevy, I won't go into how that happened, because
Or who helped you.
or who helped him, who helped them, because
They don't want any ownership.
No, because they'll get in trouble. So, but the point is, this aircraft, you can pull the power and lose all electrical power. If you switch it over to magneto, you lose all electrical power. The water pump still works. The oil pump still works. The and magneto doesn't need any external power,
Right.
and it'll
Ignition.
still fly.
Right.
So you have ignition, so it'll still fly, which I thought was ingenious.
Yeah.
But it took
The
him
water pump
10
seizes
years.
a bearing.
Well, then you got a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if you design it right,
All the way to the crash site.
if you overbuild it, you're going to have fewer chances of that. So it's really interesting stuff. So I just finished writing a story that's going to be in a future issue of Hot Rod Magazine. So we'll just kind of promote that for John a
That's
little
kind
bit.
of cool.
But
Nice.
it was a lot of fun to talk about. And he tells me, and I read somewhere where this S51, you could buy a fuselage and the wings and everything and build one yourself if you want to. Yeah, has 30,000 rivets in it. And I'm thinking, I have a rivet gun where you squeeze the handle, I'm thinking, oh my God, you're going to need one of those pneumatic ones that go toot, 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 toot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
yeah.
it's that
So-
exercise thing.
so-
that you-
Oh yeah, my hand would just fall off.
Is the big block Chevy and the gear reduction, et cetera, an improvement? Is this plane faster and more agile than the original P-51?
No, it's like it's under half the weight because it's 70% right away. It's 2/3 the size.
Oh, it's not as big.
It's not as big because the concept was, I don't really know why it was 70%, but that's what they, probably because you can't buy a regular P-51 prop. That probably would be the big thing. I don't know. Tom Cruise has one.
But you could, I know he does.
Yeah,
it's in the movie.
He keeps it down in Van Nuys.
Yeah.
Does
he? He did for the longest time. I don't know about now, but
it's like 3, what did he tell me? Yeah, for power to weight, because you're not going to run an Allison V12. You're going to run a big block Chevy, but the packaging is insane because you got it's got a centrifugal supercharger on it. So what they did was they took it down to Van Dyne down here in Huntington Beach and put it on the dyno through the PSRU. So at something like 2,500 RPM, it maxed out the dyno. So they don't really know how much torque it makes at the prop, because they had to run it through the PSRU to get it to run the proper rotation because the engine's spinning backwards. Yeah. So it's wild. And they take the cowlings off, and it's like, how did you squeeze all this stuff in there? That's 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag. It's amazing. It's like a streamliner, where everything's all jammed in there.
So are there radiators, obviously?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they've got, I think, 30 hours on the aircraft so far. Guy named Bowers is the guy that owns it, and Zakarowski's the guy that built the motor, and then and it was really interesting piece of engineering.
If I start squirreling away, because I am a huge fan of that plane, can I get active machine guns?
No.
Yeah, and who wants it?
The simple answer is no.
Why not?
You can simulate them.
A friend of mine's selling.
No, I don't want any lights glowing.
A friend of mine's
at the
got
end
2
of the wings.
zeros for sale.
I want to shoot some
real
stuff
Mitsubishi Zeros.
Real Mitsubishi.
A6Ms.
Yes.
2.
He found them down in New Guinea.
Oh, so they're not flyable.
They will be.
They will be.
Yes.
Wow.
With guns.
Yeah. And a Betty too.
But
wow.
It's actually evolved since we talked last. Yeah, I'm gonna see him next week.
That's some great stories.
I wanted 0.
I read just something, and I don't know if this is true, but it was about the A6. I just read this morning, and it was a deal about how that was an incredibly fast airplane, highly maneuverable because it was super light,
but it got shot up very easily
because there was no armor for plating, no self-sealing gas.
And the Corsair was the other. You could shoot that plane up all day long, and it'll stay in the air.
F6F too. They called them the Grumman Iron Works for a reason.
FU4.
That was F4F and then F6F.
Right.
Yeah.
The Paddy Boyington.
Watch your language.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
how dare you?
And it was just interesting. But the story was that when Japan bought this is like in 1933 or 34, bought a series of Pratt Whitney engines and used them as the prototypes for the A6M, the Zero, and then eventually reversed engineered the engine and built their own. So these guys that I think it's the airplane out at Chino, that A6M that's out there, the Zero that's out there, they didn't have an engine. So they put the Pratt Whitney, it was 1830, I think, 18, whatever it was. Yeah, it's a single row, probably a 9-cylinder, probably radial in there, and he said it bolted right up because it was a duplicate of the engine that they reverse engineered. So it was like, so it's entirely possible that when we got attacked on December 7th, 1941, that the Zeros that were attacking
were using a Pratt Whitney motor.
We're using a Pratt Whitney.
That's
engine.
nice.
Which is like, wow, I'm a real fan of World War II, but I did not know that.
That's not a fun deal.
Wow.
See what you learn here?
Yeah, it's history, it's everything. It's wonderful. So I learned something interesting many of years ago. I was like, I always wondered, what's the deal with them always running the props backwards, right? And I just never, because I'm an engine guy. It's like, why would you do that? And they always belch all this huge cloud of smoke when they fire, right?
Oh, I learned about that. I can't remember. What was it they did
I
for a reason?
I can tell you what it is.
We're going to learn right now.
We're going to learn right now.
Yeah, but I know it. Oh.
The answer is
Alex.
Go ahead, but I know this. I'm gonna go ahead.
okay.
Damn it.
So you rock the prop backwards because a radial engine is always odd number of cylinders. But that's not really important. But you're going to have 2 or 3 cylinders facing down, which means the oil drains into the cylinder. And if you try and fire that rascal, it's going to hydraulic and it's going to bend the rod, and then you're screwed. So you walk it backwards, and then because you walk it backwards, it pumps all that oil out in the exhaust, sits in the exhaust. You fire the motor, it goes
belches all of it out,
and that's all it was. And my dad used to tell me, because my dad learned to fly on the AT6, the Texan. The Navy called it SMJ, and that was a radial. And I talked about it once when I was a little kid, and somehow we got on the subject of changing oil. You want to take care of your engine, all this kind of stuff. And my dad says, "Well, I never change oil on my engines, so why not?" Well, the Navy doesn't. And it always bothered me why that would be. Well, you know why? Because A, they leak like crazy, and B, all those radial engines dripping on the ground.
They just fill it back up because it drained all of it.
You don't ever have to change it because it doesn't stay in the engine that long.
Yes.
Yeah, 30,000 miles, never changed oil. So, just little tidbits of information, little historical facts that you would learn at this show.
Are we being told to wrap this up?
Put it in a nice burrito.
So it's been fun, right?
There you go.
Good to get the Migos back together again.
It's always, I enjoy, I hope those who put up with me and listen to you two, that I really enjoy the conversations. I really, really do, because it's fascinating how none of this is planned.
No. There's no script.
But the stuff that gets dredged up is I mean, we went from me reading old hot rods to talking about World War II plane engines, or why you have to reverse the prop. And do we have to officially sign off and say bye to the kids?
Yes, we do. So we need to thank our friends at arp-bolts.com, our friends at ARP, and they help us out. We get to acknowledge our cool banner. Did you even notice our cool banner when you came in?
It was pointed out to me.
Okay. So we're very proud of that. So it makes us look professional, which is all just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, that's first. Pushing it.
So if you can't tell, we're having a good time doing this, and we hope you are too.
I hope they are too.
Yes,
I really do.
And God help you if you're not, but that's okay, And so stick with us, because we got plenty more stories to tell you, and we'll see you the next time.